Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I want to start by telling a little story. So when my daughter was about Tara, some of you who know Tara, when she was about 3 years old, we took her to Shakespeare in the parks. It was a little iffy because she's only 3. So we're thinking, okay, well, maybe she'll be okay. So we thought, okay, we'll sit outside. If she gets wild, she can run around. Turns out there was a rainstorm. So we ended up having Shakespeare in the parks in the University Theater. And then we had to decide, okay, what do we do now? So we said, well, we're going to go for it. So we sat right in the front row, right in the middle. And the show was Cyrano de Bergerac. Tara was mesmerized, just totally mesmerized by the whole entire thing. In fact, I can now trace back this morning, I realized she has a great love for movies that have sword fights in them. And now I know why. It's because she, but when the show ended, she started to cry. And she would not stop crying. We could not get her to stop crying. And what, Tara, what happened? What's wrong? And she said, still. Well, as you all know, Cyrano dies in the very last scene. And we said, no, sweetie, he's not really dead. He was just an actor. She would not believe us. We ended up saying, okay, here, we're going to take you backstage and you'll get a chance to see this guy. And he's really still alive. And she still kept crying, went all the way backstage. Fortunately, the actor was there still in his costume and very, very nice fellow. And Tara ran up and she gave him a hug. And only then would she stop crying, because only then did she realize, oh, this was just a story. He's just fine. Well, that is a bridge to understanding. That is an example of how sometimes, like Thomas, the disciple for today, we need to have something we can touch and feel to be able to make that leap over that chasm to get to the other side. And that's our theme for this month, our building bridges of understanding. So I'd like to share with you the most recent bridge to understanding that I've come across. And it happens to come from reading this book, which is the one that both book groups are reading right now. I'd just like to offer a suggestion for the future of all of my comments to say that probably a better name for this would be radical understanding. Because if those of you who are reading it, the whole point of this book is that you don't need to be doing any forgiveness because there's nothing to forgive. But that's an understanding that we come to. So I'm going to refer to this as radical understanding, unless I slip up and make a mistake. But that's my intention, is to refer to this as radical understanding. So that the biggest questions in our lives, I think, particularly right now, personally, of course, are why do bad things happen to good people? But the larger question is, why do bad things happen in the world? What is this that's going on that causes this chaos we're living in now and whatever may be happening in our personal lives? And that to me is one of the greatest gifts of reading this book, because it has given me a perspective on all of this that makes it much easier to go forward and helps to be able to stay in the now when things happen. Well, traditional understanding, well, as Radical Forgiveness points out, we live all the time in 2 different worlds. Those of us here in this room, at least, understand that we live in 2 different worlds. We live in the world of the human parts of us that are out there in the 5 senses, tangible stuff. And then we also live in the world of our spirit selves, which is not the 5 senses. It's that other part of us that lives in spirit and connects with our spiritual understandings. And how does that factor into what's in this book and radical understanding? So let's talk about our traditional way of understanding things. Our traditional way of understanding things is rooted in our being human. And when we see something, as I mentioned earlier, that we think is going wrong and that everything is chaos and falling apart and how can this be? Our tendency is to always assume there's something wrong. Always assume this isn't what's supposed to be happening. Always thinking that we need to blame something or somebody Sometimes that blame falls on ourselves. Sometimes it's out there somewhere, but there needs to be this element of blame so we can figure out, okay, what happened? Why? Why did that person do that? If I can understand that, maybe I can tap into my sense of compassion and get to a place where I can forgive whatever that is. So that's the way we traditionally think about this. And as radical understanding points out, that keeps us all on that same plane of humanity. And it actually keeps us all in the position of being victims. Radical understanding would have us believe that there is nothing wrong, that whatever is happening is exactly what should be happening, whether it's personally in our lives or out there in the world. And because this is God's plan and everything is happening as it should, we don't need to worry about forgiving anything. We need to allow ourselves to stop trying to find something to blame and just accept and say, yes, this is part of the plan. Well, how in the world can we do that? I mean, what is it that leads us to be able to make that jump, to go across that bridge, cross that chasm to saying, oh, there's nothing wrong? Well, I'd like to just share with you some of the assumptions that are in this book. And as I go through them, I think you'll notice that they're basic assumptions to unity. There are things that we talk about here all the time. There isn't anything particularly radical about them. Let me just share the ones I think that are most relevant to our radical understanding of what we're talking about right now, what I'm talking about. So first assumption that we have is that we have bodies that die, but we have immortal souls that existed prior to our incarnation and continue to exist after death. I had a most amazing vision of this when I was looking at some pictures of my brand new granddaughter. So here she is sitting in her high chair. Tara is of the belief now that they're doing these days of raising kids, totally different from what I had when I was raising her. But anyway, the belief now is that for the first year, food is something to be experienced and played with, but not for nutrition. So here's this little 6-month-old baby propped up in a high chair. Thank you. And Tara has mixed up a mixture of squash and formula. So it is this golden brown stuff, and it's smeared all over her chest. And she's got a spoon in her hand and she's just trying to get it in her mouth, but you can see that she's been missing a lot, And I'm thinking to myself, why are babies born without having any abilities at all? Think about it. And I'm going to paraphrase here from Aladdin. Here we are starting out up there in the ether, wherever, as these fantastic, enormous spiritual beings, unlimited, all powerful, fantastic human beings. And then we come and incarnate into a little itty bitty living space. From here to little bitty living space. Well, it takes a little time to get used to that. I mean, think about it. We have never had arms and legs and bodies and mouths and whatever. So yeah, no wonder it takes babies a long time to figure out, oh, wait, no, this is my hand. I can do this. And all the other things they have to figure out. I mean, it's just, to me, it's just like, oh yeah, massive spirit, little itty bitty living space. It takes time. It takes time to adjust to that. But anyway, a little aside. Okay, that's one of our assumptions, which I think we all agree with. Another one is that while our bodies and our senses tell us that we are separate individuals, we are all one. We all individually vibrate as part of a single whole. And again, that's the oneness that we talk about all the time. In order to exponentially expand our awareness of oneness, we agreed to come to this world in which there's duality, in order to experience the opposite of oneness, which is separation. You can't really know something unless you're outside of it and have a different experience to contrast it with. Part of the agreement when we came here was that we would forget the world of oneness that we came from in order to fully experience separation. And when we have experienced the amount of difficulty that we have agreed to experience in getting through this lifetime of separation, then we come across radical understanding and we awaken and remember who we are. Who we are. We are spiritual beings having an experience in a human body. And vibrationally, we live in two worlds, the world of divine truth and spirit and the world of humanity. And once we awaken, we can begin to live comfortably in both of them at the same time. The world of humanity is a spiritual classroom, and life is the curriculum. Our lessons are the events that happen in life, and the objective is to awaken to the truth of who we are and return home. Life is not random. It provides for the purposeful unfoldment of our own divine plan, with opportunities to make choices and decisions in every moment, guided by our higher self. We come into the physical life experience with a mission to fully experience a particular energy pattern so that we can feel the feelings associated with that pattern and then transform that energy through love. And we come not alone. We come with a soul group. And that soul group get together before we incarnate. And we think through who's going to play what this time around. So when we come down here, we have significant people in our lives that are there for a reason, to help us to feel these feelings and go through this process of healing. And at the soul level, we get precisely what we need in our lives for our spiritual growth. And how we judge what we get determines whether we experience life as painful or as joyful. So that all sounds pretty much like stuff we've heard here before in Unity. There's nothing really too surprising about that. But the thing that's surprising to me is that when you take all those assumptions and add them up, we are just like those players in that theater. We're like those players that Tara went backstage to see, except that we forget that we're playing a role. We forget we're all on the same team, and that after the curtain falls, we can go backstage and we're all one family together of actors doing whatever. We get caught up in our roles, which we're supposed to do because we're here to experience the role that we're in fully and completely. So we forget on purpose, but that doesn't change the reality that we are all one. And that in every moment, no matter what it is that's happening, we are completely safe. Completely safe. Even making our transitions, we are completely safe because the we that we are is that spiritual essence that goes on forever. So the only other thing that came to me, and I know David MacArthur told us this a long time ago when he was our minister. He said, it's so amazing to me how humans keep inventing things that parallel spiritual truths. He was talking about the internet, which now gives us the capacity to all connect and be as one. I'm thinking virtual reality games gives us the opportunity to experience things at a level that feels so real, but it's not. We take off the set and we are fully safe where we are. That's an analogy for what we are here on Earth. So in this book, Colin Tipping talks about a couple of examples that help to illustrate with people's lives how this works. He tells the story of his sister Janet. I'm going to tell it a little differently because I think he missed parts. So Janet met together with her soul group before she came to Earth. And she said, okay, this time around, I'm going to work on abandonment issues. That's what I'm going to do. And so I need somebody to play the role of my father. who's going to be a person who doesn't show me any love because he's not able to show love. And I need somebody to play the part of my brother, Colin Tipping, who at the right point down the road will appear and help me understand all of this so I can get back to who I am. So that's what happened. Janet came to this planet. She incarnated. Her dad is at a very, very, very young age, never hugged her, never loved her, never showed his affection in any way, shape, or form. She grew up thinking, this may sound familiar, she wasn't good enough. And she got into a pattern of getting into relationships that reflected back her belief about herself, where her first husband cheated on her all the time, convincing her she wasn't good enough. Marries again, gets a second husband, things seem to be okay, and then something happens in their lives, and he turns all of his affection over to his daughter and is not giving her any at all. And she's going like, this is so unfair. Why is this happening to me? And by good coincidence, she goes to see her brother, and he talks her through it all and says, you know, this is actually an example of the lesson that you're here to learn. And he was able to help her go back and see, take her back to, oh, yeah, this is a pattern that I've had in my life. And every time it comes up, and we've heard this before, every time it hits you in the head, either you get the lesson or you're going to get hit again down the road. You know, that's the way it works. This is what this is all about, is seeing all of these things that happen in our lives as these hits in the head that say, no, this is an opportunity to take what is happening in your life right now and look into it deeply and use it for healing. The other thing about this approach that he's talking about is that when we do it this way, we take ourselves out of the role of being a victim. We take ourselves out of that role because we say to ourselves, oh, wait, this is not something bad happening to me that I can go blame on somebody else or maybe on myself, but there's blame here somewhere. No, 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 no. This is a blessing. If I take this as a blessing and an opportunity, that's coming from a place of love and strength in myself, not a place of fear. And it's that ability to see things as an opportunity and a blessing that converts ourselves from being a victim to being a person who is coming from love and can heal. So that's the other major shift that takes place when we allow ourselves to cross this bridge, to entertain the idea, maybe nothing is wrong. Maybe everything that happens is for good. And this is true not just on the individual level for each of us as individual people. It's true for the collectiveness of the whole entire planet. He has a story in here, and those of you who read it will remember this story, about what happened when Princess Diana was killed. Now, Colin Tipping is English, so he brings to this story a very heartfelt connection, which at the beginning he didn't feel, because he'd come to the United States, he'd been here for a long time, she gets killed, he's thinking, oh, well, that's too bad. And then he starts getting all these messages from his friends back in England saying, oh, isn't it awful? Oh, you know, and he starts to tune in and he realizes, oh my gosh, the English people who are known for having a stiff upper lip came through the whole Second World War, getting bombed all the time. They had just been closed down and tough forever and ever and ever and ever. And then Princess Diana came along, and her death opened their heart chakras, because there was an incredible outpouring of allowing your heart to feel the love and the grief that they had not let themselves open up to for all those things that had happened in the war and after that. And it happened with other people all around the world as well. He said, oh my gosh, Princess Diana's mission was to be a catalyst to help open the heart chakras of people all around the world, but especially those of the people of England. So we see people playing these roles. Another one is that people sometimes play people who we want to be angry at, who we want to be thinking are terrible people, again, so that we can explore that feeling of what is it to be so angry and to be so hateful. Those are all emotions that we're here to try to learn. And I can't help thinking to myself, we have a political figure right now who may very well be that kind of a lesson for us, to help us to see how we can overcome's not the right word. We can see this differently and begin to knit our country back together again. So he says here, 90% of healing occurs when you become willing to let in the idea that your spirit has lovingly created this situation just for you. %. Where does the other 10% come from? It comes from spirit. If we just allow ourselves to change our perspective and say, this is a gift to me, we've made 90% of the distance to getting across that bridge, and spirit will carry us the rest of the way. I'm going to just stop for a moment, put in a little advertising. We are going to have a workshop based on this book on the last Sunday in August. And you don't need to have read the book to be able to participate in the workshop, but I would highly recommend that people who can make it, please do, because it is going to be an incredible thing. One of the things he points out in here, and this is something that I'm not real good at understanding this, but I'll toss it out for what it's worth. Maybe some of you else are more skilled at understanding this, but holistic healing operates from the perspective that the whole is completely contained in all the little parts. And so if you can change one little part, you have changed the whole entire thing, and it's just a matter of time until it all falls back into place in a new configuration. Well, that's how this kind of healing, this kind of understanding to this other place works. If you just allow yourself to entertain the idea that nothing is wrong, you have started that little shift that can reconfigure everything. There is also another explanation in here that really, really helped me to understand how this all works. We're all made of energy. We're all made of energy. We're all made of atoms. We're all made of that kind of stuff. But what is it that allows us to understand that energy is really the key here? He talks about this analogy. He says, okay, if you can imagine a basketball sitting in the middle of a large football stadium, the basketball is the nucleus of an atom. And the electrons that go around it are about the size of a golf ball. And the orbit that they can be in could be anywhere in that entire stadium at any given time. So we are 99.99% space with this energy circulating around. So how is it that we're solid? How can we go from all that space to thinking, but this looks solid? He said, look at the blades of a fan. You can see each individual blade right now. You can see the space in between them. But when you turn it on, it looks solid because they're moving so fast. They fill in all the space and they look to be solid. But in fact, there's always that much space between them all the time. That's what we are. We are these great spacious things with energy flowing through us. And it's the energy that we have, the rate at which our level of vibration, that helps us to either move to higher levels or move to lower levels. Fear, apathy, pride, bitter, anger, victim feelings are all very low energies. They don't have the vibrations to help us heal. Love, understanding, kindness, those are higher vibrations. And when we move in those directions, we open up this wonderful world of being able to heal. There's a whole nother section in this book that talks about cancer patients and what he's done to be able to help them as well. So it is just an amazing bridge to me. This book has helped me get over that chasm of trying to understand how we can all be spacious and still be solid. Get over that chasm of, well, maybe there really is nothing wrong. Maybe that really is the way things work. Get over that chasm of, oh, all these terrible things have happened to me in my life, but every single one of them has brought me to where I am right now. And I can move through and learn more and become even better as I go forward. So let me just end with Colin Tipping's advice on what we can do right now to help the world. The purest form of prayer that we can engage in is to feel peace, the kind of peace that comes when we surrender totally to what is, as is, in the knowledge and comfort that Spirit has it all handled and that it will all work out for the best if we just get ourselves out of the way. It is only when we are fully surrendered to the situation that we are in that energy. Wait a minute. It was only when we are fully surrendered to the situation we are in that the energy will open up for changes to occur. And what they will be, heaven only knows. So don't pray for peace. Pray to feel peace. That's the most creative prayer you can make. Peace is the strongest power on earth, and it is certainly called for at this time. When we can feel peace in our hearts, we will know love and our world will reflect it. So this means that we have a choice. Each individual can make a choice to stay in the feelings of fear and lack, mistrust, greed, and guilt, or choose to let go of all of that and be in peace. It is as simple as that. Peace and love is the only antidote to the fear-based consciousness that we now live in and participate in daily. So simply choose it. We have the technology. Use radical understanding daily in order to make that choice real and see what happens. So let's go into our meditation. You all want to just find a comfortable place. You are not a comfortable place. Settle yourselves comfortably where you are. Yeah, take a deep breath and turn within. Allow yourself to feel with your five senses that you are a physical being sitting on this chair, hearing my voice, perhaps feeling a bit of cool air blowing past you. That is our human world that we live in. And now I invite you to turn within to that quiet place inside where we leave our humanness behind. And we go to that place of spiritual connection. Go to that place of quiet and presence within. That place of spirit. That place where we connect with the infinite source. Where we remember that we too are infinite. That we are here as spiritual beings to know and live in human form. But like those players on the stage, our human form is just the temporary role that we're playing right now. For we are spiritual, immortal beings. We are always and ever safe and secure. The beginning of understanding is the desire to understand. We each have this desire to understand, a willingness to consider that in our spiritual realm, all is good. Nothing is amiss. All is unfolding to help us learn and grow and finish the mission that we came here to accomplish. We are willing at this level of spirit to understand that nothing is wrong. We are willing to bring this idea into our human interactions. Where we are awakening to the truth of our being. And we are here to help each other on our spiritual paths. And so we say, thank you, Spirit. Thank you for all the bridges to understanding that help us move between these two worlds. Thank you, Spirit. Amen. And so I invite you now to come back to your five senses and think about how at the end of our lives, we'll probably be back in that place where we can't quite get the spoon back in our mouths, but full circle, what can we say? So let's do our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Okay, let's stand and sing our peace song.